as an end in themselves, exams as almost too much of a lodestar.
She slunk into the darkest room when the argument with her friend got too emotional. He just sat quietly and nursed his brooding thoughts. The words and expressions that Dr. Shashi Tharoor uses in his conversations go far beyond everyday English language. Now, to be familiar with these words and phrases, these expressions, and to be using them in conversations, only a true language enthusiast can appreciate their usage and can strive to learn these. Now, if you truly want to go beyond that everyday English language, and if you want to sound elite, intellectually refined, and eloquent, then please go ahead and watch this video. So I have curated here 5 such expressions that have completely blown my mind as a language enthusiast, and I loved learning these, and I would definitely try using them in my conversation, but they are quite challenging and they are very advanced, so it will definitely take some time and a lot of conscious practice to use them in conversations before we can become a natural at using these as Dr. Tharoor does. Welcome to Fluency Girls. I am Mandeep. So let's begin our learning.
Hurdles, measurable expectations, doing well in exams, leaping over them, and success and failure is measured that way. That has created in our country very much a culture of exams as an end in themselves, exams as almost too much of a lodestar, in which honestly, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen too many examples of people who are only good at doing well at exams, and exams as almost too much of a lodestar, exams as almost too much of a lodestar.
Too much of a lodestar, too much of a lodestar. If you refer to someone as too much of a lodestar, then you mean to say that someone is such a strong guiding influence and an ideal that it becomes overwhelming and unrealistic to follow those ideals. It's like looking up to someone or something with such high expectations that it creates a pressure and unhealthy expectations. Let's form some sentences. Everyone sees her as the perfect boss, but honestly, she's too much of a lodestar. It's exhausting trying to match her every move. He's too much of a lodestar for the team. Instead of inspiring us, he makes us feel like we are not doing enough. Moving on.
Exactly when you think you're sort of timing the strokes well and hitting the fours off the meat of the bat, that the unexpected shooter comes along and bowls you, if the cricketing metaphor makes any sense to all of you here. Hitting the fours off the meat of the bat. Hitting the fours off the meat of the bat.
Hitting the fours off the meat of the bat. Hitting the fours off the meat of the bat. So definitely the usage of bat here and fours, that means it is a cricket metaphor. Now, meat of the bat is the thickest and the center part of the bat. And if you are hitting 4 off the meat of the bat, it means that you are performing really well with full strength and great skill. So this expression means doing something powerfully and successfully. Let's use it in sentences. She answered all the interview questions as if she was hitting the fours off the meat of the bat. When he gave that speech, he was like hitting fours off the meat of the bat. So confident and clear. Once I got used to the new project, I started hitting fours off the meat of the bat. Moving on.
It was like there was a funeral going on. I mean, I was greeted with this look of utter despair and horror and devastation on the part of both my parents, and I slunk into a darkened room and nursed brooding thoughts about whether my life had come to an end and whether there was any purpose in going on. Slunk into a darkened room and slunk into a darkened room and
slunk into the darkest room. Slunk into the darkest room. Now, slunk here is the past form of slink. Slink means moving quietly and sadly. Now, if you slunk into the darkest room, that means you are moving quietly and sadly into the darkest room because perhaps you are feeling ashamed, extremely depressed, and sad, or it can even be feeling scared. So, this expression means walking slowly and sadly into a dark emotional phase, or it can be taken in literal sense also. Let's use it in some sentences. She slunk into the darkest room when the argument with her friend got too emotional. Not knowing how to face the truth, he slunk into the darkest room of his mind. Moving on.
It was like there was a funeral going on. I mean, I was greeted with this look of utter despair and horror and devastation on the part of both my parents, and I slunk into a darkened room and nursed brooding thoughts about whether my life had come to an end and whether there was any purpose in going on. Nursed brooding thoughts, nursed brooding thoughts.
Nursed brooding thoughts. Nursed brooding thoughts. Now, to nurse means holding on to something, nurturing something, keeping it alive. And brooding thoughts are the dark thoughts, emotional thoughts, and often negative thoughts. So this expression means quietly holding on to the negative thoughts and overthinking them. Instead of talking about it, he just sat quietly and nursed his brooding thoughts. She kept nursing brooding thoughts about the breakup instead of moving on. But we must move on to the next expression.
And the reward is not the only purpose of the effort. You make the effort because it was worth making in its own right. And you know, for India, we had never put forward formally a candidate for Secretary General ever before. Under the sort of Buggins-Stern system we have in the UN Security Council under the sort of Buggins-Stern system we have in the
Buggins-Stone system. Buggins-Stone system. Now, bug is a flaw, a problem. Stone system is a very rigid system, and it is often very traditional and fixed way of doing things. So, a bug in stone system means a problem in an unchangeable rigid system that needs to be fixed. But it is a rigid system, so it will not get changed, it will not get fixed. Let's form some sentences. There's clearly a bug in the stone system. This rule doesn't apply in modern world. He dared to question a bug in the stone system, and that made him unpopular. Even ancient traditions can have bug in the stone system. We need to rethink some of them. Now, with this, we come to the end of this lesson. I hope that you like these never heard of before expressions in English language, and you will try to use them and perfect them in your conversations. I'll see you next time with another lesson. Till then, happy learning. And yeah, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. See you.